to trust me now.
Hello, and thanks for joining us. This is hard to believe as well as listen to, but 6 million children a year are reported to Child Protection Services in the U.S. Only a fraction of these children receive the help they need to lead productive lives. 477 children have died just alone in Florida due to abuse and neglect, and the poor programs and policies in place. I'm happy to say that there is a nonprofit action group called Kids at Risk, and they are increasing awareness for at-risk children and youth in Minnesota and nationwide. I feel very blessed and privileged to be able to introduce to you today Mike Tikkanen, the founder of Kids at Risk Action, and Tiffany Flynn Forslund, who is an educator and advocate for children's rights. Welcome, and thank you both for being here today.
Thank you.
Now, I know, Mike, you are a national speaker, and you've spoken for the United Nations in New York for Kids at Risk Action. Can you start by telling us your experience as a CASA guardian ad litem in the child protection system?
Thank you, Catherine. Yes, I believe that the only cases that get into child protection are really over-the-top kinds of cases. My first visit to a 4-year-old CASA guardian ad litem girl was at the suicide ward of Fairview Hospital. Now, I've written about a 7-year-old foster boy who hung himself and left a note about how he hated Prozac, but that little 4-year-old girl changed my life. Her 7-year-old sister had been sexually abused for 4 years and kicked so hard by her abuser that she'd gone into convulsions. That child was a CASA guardian. I was her guardian for 11 years, came to know her very well. When I met her, she was 7. She had a vocabulary of 25 or 30 words, 7 years old. The second case I talk about is 2 girls, and one was a 7-year-old that had been prostituted in a northern suburb here. And there had been 49 police calls to that home, 49 police calls. And the only reason the children were taken away at that time was because the 7-year-old tried to kill the 4-year-old in the presence of the police officers.
Oh my goodness.
And when I called the justice officer on the case, she explained to me that I asked her, 49 calls, that's just too many. How is that? Well, the problem is so severe, there's so much of it, she said, that there's really nothing we can do unless the child's life is in imminent danger of dying. Mm-hmm. And the last story I tell is of a little boy. Now, I had about 50 kids, so I just pick out 3 stories, but he'd been tied to a bed, sexually abused, beaten, and starved for 4 years by his biological father, who had asked for custody while that man was in prison for the same kinds of crimes. He'd spent 2/3 of his life in prison for the same kinds of crimes he was about to commit on his son. And the state could have done a background check. There was actually a court order forbidding that man to be around children, young boys, in an adjacent state. And had they done a background check, none of this would have happened.
Would have been alleviated, sure. And Tiffany, you're also a guardian ad litem for Hennepin County as well as an educator. And I've read some of the stories on your website of these neglected and abused children, and they're very sad and difficult to read. What should we be taking from some of these stories from Mike?
Well, the biggest piece is that these children have no voice. They don't have a voice in their homes. Much of the time the abuse is hidden. And families also, they're unaware of the abuse themselves. Abusers don't always know they're abusing. And then we have the media. That's another issue. Nobody wants to report child abuse, as well as a society as a whole, we don't want to discuss that helpless child that is being sexually abused. So we tend to ignore it, which doesn't help. And then we have the system. The system becomes more paperwork than humanity. So even if some of these kids are found, the process after isn't helping them either. And that's when we get into coping and kind of where CARA comes in. If this poor child can't cope, they've already been through enough, they've taken a different path, which could have been changed. And then fourth, we have legislature. Within that, there's no advocates, there's no money, and kids can't vote. So they really don't get a say in legislature. That's how we change laws.
Okay.
So that's a huge piece.
Okay. And Mike, statistics are showing that 1/3 of abused and neglected children eventually victimize their own children. With your experience in this, do you find this to be true? And how are these issues going to start impacting our communities?
That's really a powerful question, and it's so big a part of all this in that we're in our third, fourth, fifth generation of abused and neglected children having their own families of abused and neglected children. Coping skills and parenting skills don't come with the stork. They are either delivered in the home by the parents, or the community can step forward with crisis nurseries, with subsidized daycare, early education programs, and help children lead a normal life, gain coping skills, learn how to deal with life. But if you look at the third, fourth, fifth generation of these abused and neglected children, they're now filling our prisons, they're hurting our schools, they make our streets unsafe. The quality of life in the country has suffered immensely. We don't have what we used to have as a leading nation, and it's all because of how we treat children. It hurts me to say that.
Yes, that's very, very true what you're saying. Tiffany, today it's also reported that 90% of youth in the juvenile justice system has come through child protection system. So, is this about laws and institutions that do or do not work for children? Or is this perhaps about our children's civil rights?
Right, and it's both of those. We need laws and policies changed that protect children. Many times they don't have a right to an attorney. They don't foster. You know, none of those choices they get to make, and it is about civil rights. Who is protecting them without civil rights? They have nothing to protect them or a law to stand on that could help them for the future. And CARA does have a petition based on a civil rights legislation that is out there right now. And from our standpoint, it is much easier to build a healthy child versus fix an unhealthy adult.
Okay. And Mike, you're an author of a book called Invisible Children. Do you want to tell us more about this book and what you're trying to accomplish from it?
The whole reason for CARA, its mission is to raise awareness and promote the people, policies, and programs that are helping children lead better lives. At the website, invisiblechildren.org, on the far right is a button for our petition. We're trying to get people to stand behind us. We're going to deliver that petition to the political convention at the DFL in the spring. The idea is to be national at some point, but right now get a footing here to get started, to have people talk about this and sign our petition and bring a healthier way of supporting the educators. We really do want to give a shout out to the people that work with these children so that they know they're appreciated. Not just educators, but social workers, foster parents, adoptive parents. There's a lot of people trying to make a difference, and there's a lot of good people working very hard. But without our support as a community, for young families, poor families, and these other people doing the work, not much can change.
Okay. And as you already mentioned, if we look at our troubled schools, dangerous streets, and filled prisons, we see youth become adolescent felons and preteen moms. Tiffany, how can we support CARA then and its efforts to better the lives for at-risk children?
Well, laws and policies, better training for people. Humanity is a huge piece. Take notice of these issues. Don't ignore and hide. Donations to CARA. We are doing our best in trying to get the word out there, and visit our website and sign our petition, www.invisiblechildren.org.
Well, this has been a very dear and important topic to me, and I hope it will be for many others out there. Thank you very much for what you both are doing to make things better out there for our children. Breaking the cycle of child abuse and the declining of quality of life throughout the nation is directly related to how communities address services that make it possible for children to cope and lead meaningful lives. As it was said 25 years ago by the Greek philosopher Pliny the Elder, what we do to our children, they will do to society. Mike and Tiffany are improving the lives of at-risk children and youth by raising awareness and creating community action groups in Minnesota and nationwide. To find out more information about CARA and how it works, please go visit them at their website, invisiblechildren.org, or you can also give them a call at the number you see on the screen. Mike and Tiffany truly have shown us that with faith, hope, and love, we can accomplish anything in this world.